The story of Albert Einstein. In the quiet town of Ulm, Germany, on March 14th, 1879, a child was born who would one day change the way humanity understood the universe. His parents, Hermann and Pauline Einstein, named him Albert. There was nothing extraordinary about his birth, nor did anyone suspect that this quiet, thoughtful boy would one day shake the very foundations of science. Albert's early years were not particularly remarkable, except for one incident that would remain etched in his mind forever. At the age of 5, he fell ill and was confined to bed. One day, his father brought him a simple compass to keep him entertained. Young Albert was mesmerized. The tiny needle inside always pointed north no matter how he turned it. It was his first realization that invisible forces were at play in the universe. Forces that human eyes could not see, but which governed everything. Despite his natural curiosity, school was a struggle. The rigid German education system demanded blind obedience, and Albert despised it. He once told his father, "The school demands regurgitation, but I want to understand." His teachers found him rebellious. One even told him, "You will never amount to anything." But Albert had something they could not see, an extraordinary mind, a rebel with a brain. When Albert was 16, he decided that the strict schooling in Germany was unbearable. He dropped out without graduating and moved to Switzerland. There, he attended a more liberal school in Aarau, where his teachers encouraged independent thinking. He thrived. Determined to pursue science, he applied to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School, ETH Zurich, one of the most prestigious institutions in Europe. However, he failed the entrance exam, not because he was unintelligent, but because he was weak in subjects like language and history. Undeterred, he spent a year improving his grades and was finally admitted in 1896. During his years at ETH, Albert was not the best student. He found lectures dull and often skipped them, preferring to study on his own. He spent endless hours in deep thought, imagining how the world worked at a fundamental level. It was also during this time that he met Miliva Maric, a Serbian physics student. She was one of the few women studying science at the time, and their shared passion for physics soon turned into love. By 1900, Albert had graduated, but he could not find a job. Universities rejected him, and he struggled financially. He married Miliva, and soon they had a son, Hans Albert Einstein. To support his family, he took a job as a clerk at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. For most people, this would have been the end of their scientific dreams. But for Einstein, it was just the beginning. The miracle year, 1905, working at the patent office gave Einstein free time to think about physics. While reviewing inventions, he often scribbled equations on scraps of paper, lost in deep thought. And then in 1905, what would later be called the Annus Mirabilis, miracle year, he published 4 scientific papers that revolutionized physics. 1. The photoelectric effect. He proved that light behaves both as a wave and a particle, which later led to the development of quantum mechanics. 2. Brownian motion. He mathematically proved the existence of atoms, settling a debate that had lasted for centuries. 3. The special theory of relativity. He proposed that time and space are not absolute, but depend on the observer's motion. This was mind-blowing. 4. The mass-energy equivalence, E equals mc squared. He showed that mass and energy are interchangeable, laying the foundation for nuclear energy. These papers were so groundbreaking that Einstein became famous overnight in the scientific community. Scientists began to recognize that this quiet patent clerk had just rewritten the laws of the universe. But Einstein's life was far from easy. His marriage to Miliva began to crumble under the weight of his growing fame. In 1919, they divorced, and Einstein soon married his cousin, Elsa Einstein. The theory that shook the world. Einstein continued refining his ideas, leading to his greatest work, the general theory of relativity in 1915. This theory went beyond special relativity and proposed that gravity is not a force, but rather a curvature in space-time caused by massive objects. His theory was bold, but was it true? In 1919, During a solar eclipse, British astronomer Sir Arthur Eddington tested Einstein's theory. He found that light from distant stars bent around the sun, exactly as Einstein had predicted. When the news broke, Einstein became an international celebrity. He was no longer just a scientist. He was a symbol of human genius. Newspapers across the world hailed him as the new Isaac Newton. People stopped him on the street. Overnight, the quiet physicist became a legend, fleeing the Nazis and the atomic bomb. In the 1930s, as Adolf Hitler rose to power, Einstein, a Jewish scientist, became a target of the Nazi regime. His works were burned in public book burnings, and he was branded an enemy of Germany. Realizing the danger, Einstein fled to the United States in 1933. He took a position at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, where he would spend the rest of his career. However, the world was on the brink of World War II, and Einstein found himself reluctantly drawn into politics. In 1939, he co-signed a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, warning that Nazi Germany might be developing an atomic bomb. This letter led to the Manhattan Project, the top-secret U.S. effort to build the first nuclear bomb. When the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, Einstein was deeply troubled. Though he had helped alert the U.S. government about the danger of Nazi nuclear weapons, he never worked directly on the bomb and later became an advocate for nuclear disarmament. In his later years, Einstein continued working on his unified field theory, an attempt to explain all the fundamental forces of nature in a single framework. However, he never completed it. He remained a champion of peace and civil rights, speaking out against racism, war, and oppression. Despite his fame, he lived a simple life, often seen walking around Princeton in a sweater and sandals, his wild white hair making him instantly recognizable. On April 18, 1955, at the age of 76, Albert Einstein passed away from an aneurysm. His final words were spoken in German, but the attending nurse did not understand them. Legacy. Today, Einstein's contributions remain at the heart of modern physics. From black holes to GPS technology, his ideas continue to shape our world. His face, with its thoughtful eyes and mischievous smile, has become an icon of human intelligence. Perhaps his greatest lesson was not in equations, but in his words. Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, but imagination encircles the world. Albert Einstein was not just a physicist, he was a visionary, a rebel, a dreamer, and above all, a man who looked at the universe and dared to ask, what if? And in doing so, he changed everything.